I'm now joined by John O'Farrell from Silver Spring Networks. Now, John, you're involved in the smart grid. Tell us about that.
Sure. Well, basically, if you think of how we live today, we use all kinds of very advanced electronic devices, Blackberries, iPhones, plasma TVs, Game Boys, as well as more mundane ones. Those, in many cases, use 21st century technology, but the electrical grid that they're plugged into is very much 20th century. It's, in most countries around the world, 50 or 60 years old. And in the new world we've entered, the world of climate change, that's really unacceptable. It's an electrical grid that has no ability to manage energy efficiently. It has no ability to detect outages or failures when they happen. It gives us no visibility into our consumption, doesn't allow us to integrate renewable sources effectively. The smart grid is about applying modern communications and information technology to the old electrical grid. Basically, what my company, Silver Spring Networks, is doing is building an internet for energy. If we look back in 10 years' time, we'll say, my gosh, just like we look back now on the internet from 15 years ago, we'll say it's incredible how far we've evolved in 10, 15 years in terms of smart devices, being able to know when power is plentiful and cheap, when it's coming from renewable sources, and being able to consume it at that time. We'll have a lot more visibility into our consumption. We'll be able to plug in our electric vehicles when we come home from work, and the grid will decide when it makes sense to charge them so that they're ready to go in the morning. It'll really be a world of interconnected devices, appliances, and software that manage energy much more efficiently than we do today, and will have enormous benefits in terms of reduced global carbon emissions.
Wonderful. I wanted to ask you a bit more about the renewable energies. Obviously, it'd be great to get more of those into the mix. Transmission, I know, has been a problem from large-scale solar or large-scale wind plants. That's always been one tricky item. But you did mention something interesting about having smaller scale, like your own energy source at home. Is that the way that you see the future of renewables going?
I think it's going to be both, Sarah. In reality, it's going to be a combination of these very large installations in the desert or large wind farms off the coast, and a lot of, if you like, millions of individual points of light. And that's not just when it comes to renewables, but in general, if you think of what the grid serves, it's ultimately billions of customers around the world, individuals like you and me. And the transmission part is hard, but it is big enough that it merits a lot of very focused investment. And you can solve those through large initiatives. The challenging part is very analogous to the last mile in telecommunications. It's how to bring these advanced services to everybody in the world cost effectively and safely and securely and with the scalability and open standards we talked about, so that many companies can integrate onto that network. And renewables are a part of that. The key is a really smart software and hardware platform that the utility can provide that allows them to integrate all these new inventions as they come along. The electric vehicles is a classic example. They are really a renewable power source when you think about it. We'll feed them at night when they're cheap. When energy is plentiful, pour a lot of wind power into your car effectively. During the day, you'll be able to plug it back in when you get to the office, and you will have set a profile that says, I need 100 kilometers of charge in my car at any time, but to the extent I've got another 100, I'm happy to sell it. And I'll allow the utility to charge it as long as it's always ready to go by 6 o'clock in the morning, or never has less than 50 kilometers in it, and so on. So it's going to become a part of our way of life. We won't even think in terms of the smart grid in 10 years' time. It'll just be there. Our kids will be amazed we ever lived any other way.
Interesting. So now that off the grid is kind of a badge of honor, the smart grid will actually be the way of the future.
I think so. Yeah, it's going to become a way of life. We'll take it for granted.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you stopping by.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Nice to meet you. Thanks.
Thank you.